Hello, listeners. Welcome back to the Brand Marketing Show. Kath Langman here with you. And if you're listening to this in mid to late November, I have a feeling I know exactly what you are experiencing right now. Of course, we are peak ecom Black Friday slash Black Month slash lead up to Christmas. It can be extremely hectic. But for those of you who are really working towards building a premium or high quality or innovative, unique brand and really trying to stand for something that is not wanting to participate in the rush of deep discounting or this craziness of consumerism. I know many of you prefer to sit that out. If that's the case, and that's where you are, your November probably started a bit slower than you expected. Even if you are participating in Black Friday and you've held off to, closer to the actual, traditional dates of the promotion, probably November started slower than you expected. Maybe not disastrously slow, but quieter than perhaps you would like. And meanwhile, most likely your email inbox is a bit like mine and is absolutely exploding with lots of promotional emails. 50% off, 60% off, our biggest sale ever, exclamation mark, and so on and so forth. And, you'd be seeing all of those brands posting their best day ever screenshots on Instagram. And, there's this creeping feeling that can enter into your gut that maybe you got this wrong. Maybe you should have gone harder. Maybe you should have started your promotions earlier. Maybe you should have offered bigger discounts, or you should be doing so now. Or maybe your customers are all shopping elsewhere because you're not giving them a good enough deal to buy from you right now. And here's the worst part, if you're like many brand owners that I've been talking to this month, you probably went into November after having really high confidence levels back in October. And you went into November with a plan. You knew your positioning. You were committed to doing this differently. And if you have had a quiet start to November, you might now be questioning everything. If this is you, I need you to know something. That FOMO, let's call it what it is, that FOMO you're feeling, it's lying to you. And I'm going to spend the next 30 odd minutes explaining why your quieter start to November might actually be the smartest strategic move that you could make. But more importantly, how you can sustain your confidence, how you can stay the course, and how you can actually still be making really good money now and setting yourself up for good money in the future when everyone around you is doing the absolute opposite. So, to begin with, let me paint you a little bit of a picture. You know that boutique cinema that you might have in your city, the one with the velvet seats, the wine list, the carefully curated film program. Maybe it's the Palace chain if you're in a major city, or it could be a different, beautiful independent cinema that shows art house films and has actual waiters who bring you cheese platters and lots of fun things like that. Right now, in this November moment, it probably feels like you're that cinema on a Tuesday night and you're watching maybe 30 or 40 people trickle in for your $25 tickets and your $18 glasses of Chardonnay. The lights are low, the atmosphere is really beautiful, everything feels really refined. But here's the thing, you can see the massive multiplex down the road from your window, and it is absolutely heaving. Their Tight Ass Tuesday promotion has queues snaking around the building. There are hundreds of people pouring in for their $8 tickets. The car park is absolutely chockers. It's chaos, but it's busy chaos. And you're standing there in your beautiful quiet cinema thinking, am I doing this all wrong? Should I be doing what they're doing? But here's what you can't see from your velvet seats. That multiplex, they're barely covering their operating costs on those $8 tickets. They're banking entirely on volume from the popcorn and soft drink sales to maybe, and I mean maybe, break even on the night. Their staff are run absolutely ragged. They're screening to 400 people who are probably going to forget what they watched by Tuesday morning. And a decent proportion of them are only there because it was cheap enough to not really matter if the film was any good. Meanwhile, back in your boutique cinema, your 30 people just spent $1,200 between them. They're already talking about coming back next week. 3 of them signed up for your membership program on the way out. They took photos of their experience in your beautiful cinema environment and tagged you on Instagram. And your projectionist went home at 9 p.m. instead of midnight and isn't burnt out. That's the way I want you to think about your November. It might be quieter than the discount circus happening around you. And yes, it feels uncomfortable watching all of that activity whilst your own metrics might look modest. And, might I just add, as a side note here, you might be watching all of that activity, but seeing only what they choose to show you on their social media highlight reel. You don't actually know what's going on behind the scenes. You know, so yes, you might be wondering if you should just cave and offer 50% off everything. But I believe that the numbers are going to be telling a very different story. So I want to talk about the psychology of staying the course here. So, what is actually happening in your brain right now? Because understanding the psychology of this moment and all of the many moments that you're probably going to experience along similar lines in your business journey is the first step to not making decisions that you will regret come January or down the track. And there are 3 psychological forces that could be working against you right now. And the first is social proof on steroids, because when you see everyone else doing something, especially when they're posting their wins publicly, your brain interprets that as evidence that they must know something you don't. And this is called informational social influence, and it is really powerful. During promo periods like Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and those of us who work in the e-commerce space, we are in a little bit of a bubble where all of this feels just like it is absolutely everywhere. I know when I talk to my family and friends who don't really know anything much about e-commerce, they're like, what? They don't know what's going on. And it feels so all-encompassing in my world. But anyway, during this period, this kind of goes in this phenomena of informational social influence goes into overdrive because everyone around you is broadcasting their biggest day ever. And we've never done this before type of messaging. And your social media feed becomes kind of like this echo chamber of apparent success. And so your brain starts screaming at you, everyone else is zigging. Why the hell am I zagging? But here's what's really crucial to understand. You're only seeing the front of house activity. You're not seeing what's happening behind the scenes. You're not seeing their profit margins. You're not seeing their return rates in January. You're not seeing their customer acquisition cost. You're not seeing how many of those sales are from existing customers who would have potentially bought anyway with less of a discount. You are just seeing that queue outside the multiplex, not their balance sheet. The second psychological scenario that is going on here that many of you would be feeling is loss aversion. And so our brain is really hardwired to feel potential losses about twice as intensely as equivalent gains. So right now, that fear of missing out on potential revenue feels enormous, even though the reality of training your customers to wait for discounts, eroding your brand equity, and sacrificing margin is a much bigger long-term loss. And this is why a quieter start to November feels so uncomfortable. Your brain is screaming, loss, 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 we're losing, even though what you are actually doing is protecting your net profitability and your brand positioning. And the third psychological phenomena that you'd potentially be experiencing right now is recency bias. So whatever is happening right now feels like it will continue forever. So if you had a slow start to November, or it felt slow to you compared to what was going on around you, your brain projects that slowness infinitely into the future. You forget that you have sales cycles and that things will typically pick up at a certain period. If you're a gifting product, it'll pick up in December. If you're a back to school product, it'll pick up in January. You also forget things like that January brings, the new year, new intentions type of energy. You forget that your best customers don't actually buy just because there's a discount frenzy. They buy when they're ready and they are, they're willing to pay what the product costs because they value what you offer. The recency of right now makes you forget the pattern of what actually works for your brand over time. So, knowing all of this, how do you actually then stay the course? Because here's the thing, I'm not suggesting that you just white knuckle your way through a tough time or a potentially, time where you're potentially feeling really quiet with, just relying on pure willpower, because that's exhausting. It's not sustainable. And I have a better plan for you. So what I'm suggesting is that you get strategic about protecting your state of mind whilst you are working on executing your brand strategy. And as per my usual, I have a step-by-step for you today. And so the first strategy I want you to do is to reframe your metrics. I want you to stop measuring yourself against the highlight reel being put out by these discount brands. I mean, seriously, go and unfollow them if you need to, just so that you don't see it all the time. They are playing a very different game with very, completely different economics. Instead, I want you to be tracking what actually matters for your business model. Average order value, yours should be higher. Net profit per customer, not just revenue. Repeat purchase rate, customer lifetime value. I guarantee you, when you look at these metrics, what felt like a quieter start to November starts to look very different. You might have 50 transactions instead of 500, but if your average order value is $200 and your margin is 70% instead of their $50 AOV at a 10% margin, you're winning. You're just winning differently. The second strategy I want you to employ is to create a remember why document. This might sound or feel a little bit too simple, but I'm really serious about this. Create a document. It could be a note on your phone. It could be a physical page that you pin above your desk. What I want you to capture is, in writing, why, or illustrate it, why you built a premium brand in the first place, what you stand for that's different, what's unique and different and better, right? Your best customer testimonials include some of those, your most profitable months and what drove them. Even just thinking about that and articulating and writing it down is going to be incredibly powerful at refocusing your brain on what matters most. And then also document that moment that you decided you weren't going to compete on price. So that way, when the FOMO hits, and it will multiple times a day sometimes, you go and read this. You reconnect with your purpose. You remember that you are not playing that volume game with the really, really slim margins. You are here to play the value game. Third strategy I want you to employ is to focus on what you can control. You cannot control what your competitors do. You cannot control what the market does broadly. You cannot control whether your customers are holding back spending right now. What you can control is your messaging. And this is where we're going to spend the rest of this episode, because this is where you have the most leverage right now. So let's talk about the power of emotive storytelling. In fact, I did an episode on this show probably a couple of months back about brand storytelling, and it's been one of the most downloaded episodes in the history of this show. So there you go. Your customers aren't going to be sitting around just waiting for your discount, right? They're going to be waiting for you to remind them why they chose you in the first place, or why they should choose you in the first place. And, right now, just put yourself, you are in their shoes too, right? We're all drowning in promotional emails. Every other brand and, their dog is shouting massive percentages and stacking discounts and creating urgency with countdown timers and so much more. It's exhausting, and it can feel really overwhelming for your customers, and it can all start to blur together. What cuts through that noise is not a bigger discount. It's a better story. So let's talk about how you find those stories, and more importantly, how you can deploy them across every channel that you've got. So how do you find your stories? I know many of you are creative people because you've created your amazing products, but you're not necessarily writers. And thinking about, either the written word or messaging can feel really difficult sometimes. So I'm going to help you to find your stories. Your customers are experiencing something right now. It could be a feeling, it could be a problem, it could be a moment that, in time where something specific is happening. It could be a desire. Whatever it is, it's something that they're experiencing that your brand understands and solves in a way that no other brand can. The key to this, finding your story, is to get very specific about the moment or the moments that they're in, not just the product category that you serve. So let me give you some examples. Instead of something like we sell premium skincare, you could think about and describe a moment like it's 10 p.m. You finally got the kids to bed, the house is quiet, and you're standing in your bathroom realizing you've spent all day taking care of everyone else. You deserve these 5 minutes to feel like yourself again. Or instead of we sell sustainable homewares, the moment you could think about would be you're unpacking yet another online order and you're hit with that wave of guilt, another box, more plastic, more stuff that you're not even sure you needed. What if gift giving could feel really good instead of just a bit gross? Or instead of we sell high quality activewear, the moment you could think about or describe could be something like you're tired of buying workout gear that looks great in the photo, but falls apart after 3 washes, or rides up, or goes see-through, or makes you adjust it every 5 minutes instead of actually focusing on your workout. Hopefully, you see the difference here. You're not selling products, you're acknowledging a lived experience that your customer is having right now, and you're positioning your brand as the solution to that specific emotional moment. Once you've identified the moment or the moments, I mean, there should be many over the course of a year, right? Here's how you structure the story. First, you want to name the feeling or the situation, and this is your hook. It makes them stop scrolling because they feel seen. Secondly, you want to acknowledge why the current solutions aren't working. This is going to help build credibility and it will help separate you from the noise. 3, you want to introduce your solution as the answer to that emotional need, not just the functional one. So all of you left brain people out there, step out of your left brain and the logic and go into the emotional side of your brain. And then 4th, you want to paint the picture of the after state, how they're going to feel, what will be different, what they will be experiencing that is different, and why it matters to them. And this structure works whether you're writing an email, a social media caption, a product description, or even just a text message to a customer who is inquiring. Then, and now this is where it can get really powerful. Once you've nailed your core stories, you can deploy them everywhere. And I literally mean everywhere. So let's say that you've identified that one of your key customer moments is the conscious consumer who's really overwhelmed by Black Friday and wants to opt out of the consumption chaos, but hey, they still need to get gifts sorted for their loved ones. Here's how that story could play out across various channels. An email campaign could be about, an antidote to Black Friday. And inside, it could open with the overwhelm, acknowledge the guilt or fatigue. It could position your products as really thoughtful, lasting choices that people will actually cherish. And the call to action could be about curating meaningful gifts, not just chasing deals. An Instagram post could have a really beautiful, calm aesthetic, if you can do that in a way that's still going to stand out in the newsfeed. Maybe it's your products that are beautifully styled. It could be you talking to camera. It could be many other ways to depict this. But, with a caption starting, if the Black Friday emails are making you feel a little bit ick, you're not alone, and tell the story of why you've built your brand as an alternative to that kind of fast consumption. And, end with an invitation to shop with intention rather than urgency. There's so many different ways that you could do this. You could do this with Instagram stories as well. Hands up if your inbox is giving you anxiety right now. What if gift giving could feel really calm? Show products with simple text like made to last, chosen with intention. Shop the kind of gifts that people will actually keep, whatever it is that's going to be relevant to your brand and products, of course. Your website banner could say, thoughtfully made, built to last, chosen with intention. Again, what is the messaging that's going to really resonate? Product page updates. You could add a key section, or at least a section to the key products anyway, about why this makes a meaningful gift. And you could talk about the story of the craftsmanship or the intention behind the design or what makes it special beyond the discount. If you do also sell wholesale or you're selling business to business, you could go onto LinkedIn and write a post or an article about your philosophy. Something like we're sitting out the discount wars this Black Friday, and here's why, and position it as a business strategy decision, talking about protecting your brand equity and building customer loyalty. If you use SMS, some brands go pretty hard with SMS. Some brands it doesn't necessarily work for, but let's say you do. You could say, hey, Kath, if your inbox is overwhelming you right now, as is a breath of fresh air, no countdowns, no fake urgency, just beautifully made products, whatever your products are, that people actually treasure. So the point that I'm trying to make here, I mean, yes, I'm using examples that are around gifting because that's the time of year right now, but hopefully you can see that the point is the same core story and the same emotional insights get adapted to fit each channel, and the message actually stays consistent. And so in that kind of storytelling approach is how you're going to cut through the noise. You're the consistent, calm, confident voice that is actually sharing something that resonates with your audience in that moment in time, whilst everyone is just shouting their big discounts over there, right? And of course, you can adapt this to other moments throughout your marketing calendar, your promotional calendar, or just, the e-commerce year, because there's going to be many times where this similar sort of scenario is going on. Now, I know many, many of you, as are most of our clients and the brands that we run, are running promotions through this second half of the month. And, none of what I'm sharing today is designed to suggest that you don't run promotions, just obviously talking about a different way of doing so and encouraging you. Hopefully, this is coming across as encouraging you to stick to your brand positioning, stick to your strategic decisions and just stay strong with what you are doing and be okay that it's different to the masses, right? But if you are running a promotion right now, you might still need to be optimizing on the fly, because that's what happens, right? If you are running a promotion, nothing ever just goes 100% to plan. We do need to make those little pivots and changes and optimizations as we go, as the data starts to come in, right? And so here's the reality check. You might put this beautiful storytelling out into the world and still have a quieter than hoped for response, which is okay. It doesn't mean that the strategy is wrong, though. It just might mean that you need to tweak it or optimize it a bit. Maybe you need to look at your timing, you might need to look at your channel mix, your targeting might need adjusting, or there might be a variety of other ways that you could improve the way that you are executing. So here's how you can go about optimizing without necessarily abandoning your positioning. You could test your headlines or subject lines, try different ways of naming the emotional moment. Maybe overwhelmed by Black Friday doesn't resonate as much as tired of buying things that break. So when you are coming up with those emotional moments or those stories, situations, or scenarios that you're trying to name in the beginning, the hooks, you want to, try expressing them in different ways and then test them, see which gets the most engagement. Sometimes the easiest way to test is going to be on social media. Sometimes it might be an email. Certainly with Klaviyo, you can set up some split tests with your campaigns, and that can make it easier as well. You might need to adjust your channel mix. I mean, if email surprisingly is not converting, but your Instagram stories are getting huge engagement, maybe you need to double down on stories. Whatever the case in terms of your channel mix, just try and meet your customers where they are actually paying attention right now. Try different entry points. Maybe the storytelling lands better around specific products rather than broad brand messaging. Again, you can test both. Maybe a behind the scenes story about your creation process resonates more than a customer moment story. Try it. Add value beyond selling as well. If people are not, maybe they are engaging, but they're not buying, give them something that's, valuable that's not a discount, like a gift guide for conscious consumers or a workshop on sustainable living or some kind of content that builds the relationship, even if they're not going to purchase today. What you don't change is your core positioning, your price point, your brand values, the fundamental promise you make to your customers. Those should be non-negotiables. You're optimizing how you communicate your message, not what your message is. There's a really big difference there. So what do you do? What's the pathway forward from here? And if I'll be really honest about this, doing this well, staying the course, maintaining your positioning, particularly if you are building a quality premium brand, creating the emotive storytelling that actually converts, optimizing without losing your way. It is hard. It's really hard, especially at this end of the year when everyone's exhausted, everyone's busy. If you're like me and you've got kids that are in school, there's a whole lot of other stuff that's going on in life as well that takes up your time and your headspace. And add to that, those of you who are also trying to run every other part of your business as well, it's exhausting. It's a lot. And here's what I see happen. Brands either burn out trying to DIY it all themselves, or they cave in and they start discounting because it's just easier in the moment, even though they might know it's not the right long-term strategy. That is exactly why our clients at Productpreneur are comparatively unstressed right now. They're not panic posting discount codes at 11 p.m. They are not wondering how they're going to make payroll in January. They're not lying awake at 3 a.m. questioning their entire business model because November was just ridiculously quiet. What they are doing is working in their zone of genius. They are creating, innovating, serving their customers brilliantly, because they've got a team of brand marketing experts handling the strategy that keeps their premium positioning profitable. Their November might look quieter than the discount merchants down the road, but their bank accounts tell a very different story. Their customer lifetime values tell a very different story as well. Their stress levels tell a very different story, not suggesting they have zero stress. Of course, life is happening to all of us, right? But here's what we do that helps the clients that come to Productpreneur. We decode exactly which emotional moments your customers are experiencing that your brand can uniquely solve for. We build the storytelling framework that positions you as the right best choice, not just another option. We create the channel strategy that puts that message in front of the right people at the right time, and we optimize constantly, not by throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks, but by using data and intelligence to refine what's working. We're kind of like having a strategic marketing director who understands consumer psychology, brand positioning, and digital marketing, e-commerce marketing without the 180K salary and the 3-month notice period. Now, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, gosh, I know I need some help with this, or even just I need someone to tell me if my current strategy is actually working or if I'm fooling myself, book a brand growth strategy session with us. It's not a sales pitch. It's not us trying to convince you that you're doing everything wrong. It's a genuine deep dive into your business where we do things like decode what's actually driving your current revenue and what's just noise, show you exactly where you're leaving money on the table, and give you that clear roadmap for what to focus on next to achieve your goals. And then you get to decide if you want our help executing it or if you just want to take those insights and run with them yourself. So if that sounds like something that you could do with at the moment, go ahead and book that in at productpreneurmarketing.com. There's a link right in the top menu that says let's chat. Can't miss it. But we will also put the link in the podcast show notes as well. Before you go though, I really want to leave you with one thought. That boutique cinema that we talked about at the start, it's probably booked solid for their fantastic sessions over the summer holidays with all of that high touch service that I was talking about. The multiplex might still be trying to figure out how to make their numbers work in the new year. Uh, be the boutique. It's okay to make the same net profit without having to hustle so hard. Your quieter November, in terms of the number of customers served, it's not a mistake. It's the natural consequence of building a brand that doesn't compete on price. And in January, when everyone else is dealing with returns, refunds, customers who only bought because of a discount and will never pay full price, razor thin margins that barely kept the lights on, and a massive, drop off a cliff in terms of your revenue after the sale ended. When they're dealing with all of that, you'll be building on a foundation of customers who chose you because of what you stand for and because of, the fantastic value of your products, not because you were the cheapest option that week. And that could be the smartest move that you could make. So that's what I have for you today. I hope that you have enjoyed that. Hopefully, it's been a little entertaining as well with my storytelling and analogies. Thank you again for listening to the Brand Marketing Show. If you found this episode helpful, if it resonated with you, I would love you to share it with another brand founder who might need to hear it at the moment as well. For now, though, I will love you and leave you, and I will be back in your ears again with another episode next week. Bye for now.